Hello everyone, this is Vinod. I'm a senior software developer from Syncfusion. Today I have planned to showcase how to develop a simple travel application to display a list of tourist attraction spots using Syncfusion MAUI ListView control. By the end of this webinar, you will have a solid understanding of how to create a user-friendly travel destination app. Let me give short intro about ListView control first. The Syncfusion.NET MAUI ListView control provides a list-like interface allowing easy customization and rendering of data in both vertical and horizontal orientations. In the horizontal list view, I'll showcase the city's image and name. On the other hand, in the vertical list view, I'll present additional travel destinations within the city, displaying an image, name, and description. I'll achieve this by utilizing the item template property of the ListView control. Without wasting any time, I'll move on to the application creation. I have already installed Visual Studio 2022 with the .NET MAUI workload. Additionally, I have made sure to have the necessary versions of .NET up and running on my machine. Also install the Android Pixel 5 emulator. I open Visual Studio 2022 and select Create a new project from Dashboard. I'll choose .NET MAUI app and click Next. I'll provide the project name as Travel App, choose the location and click Next. Here I use the .NET 7.0 framework and click Create to create the project. Now the project is created. Before I proceed further, let's take a quick detour to set up the environment for running this application. Here I'll choose an Android emulator, specifically the Pixel 5 Android emulator. Once the emulator is selected, I'll run this application and show you the default output. Now you can see the emulator displaying Hello World. Next, let me show you how to configure ListView control to this project. I open the NuGet package manager and search for the package Syncfusion MAUI ListView. Install this package into my project. To use Syncfusion MAUI controls, I need to register the license key. So I open the app XAML CS page and register the trial license key using the register license method. I have already generated the trial license key, so let me copy that and paste it here. Then I open MAUI program CS page where I import the namespace Syncfusion MAUI core hosting and call the method configure Syncfusion core to register the Syncfusion handler. Next, I'll open main page XAML file and remove the default scroll view related code. Also, open the main page XAML CS file and remove the unwanted code. To use the ListView control, I import the namespace Syncfusion MAUI ListView. Here I'm going to use the grid layout, so I add the grid tag. I add the grid row definitions and define the custom height for 4 rows. In the first row, I'm going to display the label, so I include the grid row property and set its value to 0. Then set the text property to tourist destinations near. Add font size to 16 and add the custom text color. Set the font family to Roboto Medium. Character spacing to 0.25 and set a custom margin. In the second row, I'm going to display the ListView control with horizontal orientation. So I include the SF ListView tag and set the grid row property to 1. To display the list items horizontally, I add the orientation property and set its value to horizontal. Then I set the custom height and margin to align the list view. Next, I'll show you how to bind data to the list view. To achieve this, I'll use the MVVM pattern. First, I create a new model class Travel Info. I make this class public. Then I declare the field name of type string and add another field description of string type and add the field image of type image source. At last, I include the field tourist places of type observable collection of travel info. Now, model class is created. I'll move on to the repository creation for the fields added in the model class. I'll create a class travel info repository and make it public. I declare a public field places of type observable collection of string array and add another field place descriptions of type string array. I have already defined the place details and its descriptions. Let me copy that and paste it here. Look at the data here. It contains a string array with details about each city and its descriptions. You can add any number of cities and its nearby tourist spots. For now, I added 6 cities and its descriptions. I define the constructor and initialize the places with values place 1, place 2 up to place 6. In the same way, I initialize place descriptions field with a value like place 1 description, place 2 description up to place 6 description. Then I define a method generate tourist places and it takes an integer parameter index which is used to retrieve specific details for tourist places. I declare the variable list to populate the travel info object. In this method, I retrieve the specific details for tourist places from the places and place descriptions collection based on the index argument. I add the for loop based on the place details collections count. It iterates over each value of place details to generate the individual tourist places. Inside this loop, I declare new travel info object place to create a tourist place list collection. Assign the value from the place details collection to the name field based on the loop index. In the same way, assign the value from the place description details collection to the description field. The generated travel info object is added to the list collection using the add method. Finally, return this list collection containing the generated tourist places. To the image property of the travel info object, I have already collected the images. Let me copy that folder and paste it under this project resources folder. I declare and initialize the integer variables image index and image index 2. These variables are used to access the image for each tourist place from this project resources folder. To the image property of the travel info object, I use the image index and image index 2 values to create a unique image file name. Next, I define generate places method to create a collection of travel destinations based on the place names data. First, I create the variable places to populate the travel info object. I add the for loop that iterates based on the place names collection. For each value in the place names, I create a new instance of travel info class representing a travel destination. Inside the loop, I assign the name property of the travel info object with the corresponding name value from the place names collection. To generate the tourist places for each travel city, call the generate tourist places method, passing the loop index as an argument. To enhance the visual appeal of each travel destination, I construct the image property of the travel info object using string interpolation. I initialize an integer variable image index to construct unique image file name for each place generated here. This image index value is appended to the image file name and increment the index to generate unique image name for all the travel places. Finally, I'll add the travel info object to the places collection using the add method. Once I have processed all the travel destinations, return the populated places collection. Now I'll move on to the view model creation. I create a class ListView model and make it public. I declare the field places based on the travel info model class. I declare the constructor and initialize the travel info repository class. To the places field, I'll assign the collection generated in the travel info repository class by calling the method generatePlaces. Alright, now I have generated the places collection. Let's see how to bind this collection to the ListView control. In the main page XAML file, I add the local XAML namespace and assign the project name. Then I set the binding context of the content page to the instance of the ListView model class. To generate the ListView items, add the item source property and bind the places collection defined in the ListView model class. Also, I add the item size property and define the size based on the platforms. For the Android platform, I set the size to 120 pixels, and for the default platform, I set the size to 130 pixels. Let me run this example and show you the list view. The list view items are displayed horizontally, but instead of city, image, and name, you can see the business objects. To display the list items with image and name, you need to implement the item template. So I add the SF ListView item template tag and also add the data template tag. Again, I'm going to add a grid with two rows, one for image and another for name, and add the custom margin to this layout. Then I add a row definitions tag and define the custom height for two rows. In the first row, I'm going to show the image, so include the image tag and set the grid row property to 0. I add the source property and bind the image field from the places collection. I set the custom height and width to the image. And include the aspect property and set its value to fill. In the second row, I'm going to display the city name, so I include the label tag and set the grid row to 1. I include the text property and bind the name field from the places collection. Set the line break mode to word wrap. Assign the horizontal options to center. Set the horizontal text alignment to center. Set the vertical options to center. Set the vertical text alignment to center. Assign the font family to Roboto Regular. And add the custom height, width and text color. At last, set the font size to 14. Let me refresh this project to check the list view. Check now, travel place image and name are displayed in the horizontal list view. By default, you can select a single item in the list view. Here I don't need the scroll bar, so I include the scroll bar visibility property and set its value to never. Check now, scroll bar is not visible while selecting the list item. Now I'm going to display the list of tourist places near the selected cities using another list view control with a vertical orientation. In the grid layout, I'm going to display the label in the third row. So I add the label property and set the grid row value to 2. I add the text property and assign the value other places in the city. Set the font size to 16. font family to Roboto Medium, and add a custom text color and margin. Set the vertical options to center. In the fourth row, I'll show the vertical list view. So I include the SF list view tag and set the grid row to 3. By default, the orientation of the list view is vertical, so no need to set the orientation property here. To populate the list item, I include the item source property. I need to add the item list based on the selected city from the horizontal list view. To do that, I open the ListView model class and include the field selected item of type travel info class. Inside this constructor, I initialize the selected item with the first item from the places collection. Next, I open the main page XAML file and add the selected item property in the horizontal list view. Then bind the selected item field from the list view model. I also add the xname reference to the list view. In this item source property, I bind the path selected item to its places and set the source xname reference to the list view. I set the item size to 60 pixels and define the item spacing. I'm going to prevent selection in the vertical list view, so include the selection mode property and set its value to none. To define the list items for vertical list view, add SF list view item template and the data template tags. In this template, I'm going to use the grid layout with 2 columns, one for image and another for name and description. I include the column definitions tag and define the width for 2 columns. I add the frame tag with horizontal options to start and set the corner radius to 3. I set is clip to bounce true, padding 0, margin 0, as shadow false, and add a custom height and width. I'm going to display the image in the column 1. So I include the image tag and set the grid column to 0. Add the horizontal options to start. Add the source property and bind the image from the tourist places collection. And set the aspect to fill and add the custom height and width. In the second column, I'll show the grid layout with name and description. So I add the grid element and set the grid column to 1. I set the vertical options to center. I specify the row definitions for 2 rows with a custom height. In the first row, I'll display the name, so I include the label element and set the grid row to 0. Add the text property and bind the name field from the tourist places collection. Set the font size 14. Add custom text color. Font family to Roboto regular. I assign the character spacing 0.25. In the second row, I'm going to display the description, so add the label element and set the grid row to 1. Add the text property and bind the description from tourist places collection. Set the font size property to 14. Font family to Roboto regular. Assign custom text color. Set the line break mode to word wrap. Set the character spacing to 0.15 and set custom margin. Let me run this application to show the list view with final UI. When you select the city, a vertical list view displays the nearby places with image, name and description. Thank you for being here. Hope you guys like this webinar. If you have any queries, please ask.